Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussions, news, and interviews, presenting The Film Scene with Illeana Douglas. Illeana is an actress, writer, author, and film historian with a need to discuss movies that borders on obsession. You'll learn the history of movies one great story at a time. The Film Scene is the deep cuts of movie podcasts, featuring movies we love by the people who made them. And now, Illeana Douglas.
Well, hello. Welcome to the Film Scene. I'm Illeana Douglas. I'm with my co-host here, Jeff Graham. We have a lot to talk about, and we are live.
We are live, and we do have a lot to talk about, including our wonderful guest today, Noah Wyle.
Incredible.
I was going to say, you guys know Wyle, especially if you're a TV fan, but he's done a ton of movies, too, which, you kind of forget until you look at someone's filmography, just how prolific they are.
A Few Good Men.
Yeah, and part of it's Noah's just so humble, and he's such a gracious person. You'll see that in studio, but outside of studio, it's the same way.
Yes.
That you just, he's not the kind of person to broadcast the fact that he has this huge career, but
you know what I discovered? Well, we were in a film together, which we are going to talk about, called The Californians. But as I was running down his films, and once again discovered we were in a movie, and I didn't know we were.
Which one is that?
It's called Can't Stop Dancing.
Oh, nice.
It's a comedy from 1999, which was a series of cameos from different people.
I'm sure.
I said, once again, forgetting that we're in the same movie. Okay, we so much to talk about. First of all, for fans of Goliath, drops tomorrow.
Very exciting.
I've seen the first 2 episodes. I made the cut.
Good.
I'm in them. I can finally talk about the show. It's incredible. Billy Bob Thornton is amazing. Dennis Quaid is amazing. So many great people. Griffin Dunn, Sherilyn Fenn, Amy Brenneman, of course, the regular cast. And what I love about this season this year is it's just filled with symbolism. And covers the drought in California and, whether each year he fights a Goliath. But I just think that Billy Bob is just at the top of his game. And his scenes with Dennis Quaid you just feel like you're in such good hands, when you're a viewer watching them. You just go, this is going to be fun.
You can just enjoy it. That's so important. And it's interesting, Illeana. This is sort of your transition into prestige TV. You've done film for so long.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I think, especially Amazon shows, Netflix shows, they do feel like films. And I'm interested to hear, as someone who's such a film historian, what it's like for you to sort of dip your toe in. Does it feel like a new world to you or not?
Well, it was Billy Bob that said that when he did Fargo, he realized, this is the new independent film.
Yep.
And that's what I really think it is.
Yeah.
You're going to see all these amazing actors on the show really at the top of their game, getting to do things. That's what I said, the weight of, when you're watching somebody like Dennis Quaid and all the great films, everybody's all American and Great Balls of Fire, they're all running through your head. And it's just so enjoyable to watch him. Of course, Billy Bob from The Man Who Wasn't There is one of my favorites. And acting with him, I just feel makes me a better actor. Every episode was just a joy to shoot. The great Graham Greene.
Oh, yeah.
But I get to interact with everybody on the show. Paul Williams, of course, whom I've always been obsessed with. And it looks beautiful. And one of the things that they did in the show, there's no shots that are extemporaneous. Because sometimes, I feel with these shows that are on Amazon or Hulu, they spend a lot of time like, all right, I get it. We got 10 episodes to get through.
Yeah.
But nothing is taken for granted. Every song has a meaning. Cool. Every shot has a meaning. Every, scene, the words, the script are just beautiful. And I'm really, really proud of it. And I hope that everybody watches it and can, because it's not, it's about society and culture of what's going on right now in California. So I hope people will dig that. It's an old-fashioned return to movie making. There's nothing hip about it. It's
story, character.
It's the veterans of cinema.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was so thrilled to every time we said cut, and Beau Bridges, I forgot to mention. Every time they'd say cut, it was just an excuse for me to talk to Beau Bridges.
You know, the funny thing is, Illeana, they of course feel the same way about you, and you're never the kind of person who would think that, but you just slide into that pastiche of actors so seamlessly. I can't wait to watch the season.
I know.
That starts tomorrow, guys. Amazon Prime.
On Amazon Prime.
Yes.
Okay, other movies that are out. Incredible. I saw it last night. Parasite.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
Man, what a ride. What an incredible, incredible film.
So it lived up to the hype because Bong Joon-ho, I've seen Snowpiercer, love that movie. Okja, I like, people are mixed on, but
I didn't
people
like
are
that.
saying this is his like tour de force.
This is unbelievable.
I can't wait.
It's and it stays with you. There's a picture of it.
Wow.
You know, it manages to mix what I think is so incredible about it is in a completely stylish way. It is a comedy, a social satire, a horror movie, and it also has romance
Wow.
in it. Profoundly sad, you know, and dystopian at times, but stylized and I could not be more impressed with this film, and I think it's a classic. It's just an absolute classic, and I
Wow.
hope everybody goes to see it, and to see it in a big screen. Nothing like it. With the filmmaker there, of course. in
Yeah,
attendance.
was he there?
Oh yeah, he introduced it. He said, "I hope." Through a translator, he said, "I hope that this film will get into under everybody's skin like a parasite."
Great.
And stay with them.
Are you putting in your bid for
I
best
mean, look
foreign
at that
picture?
poster.
Yeah, everything about it is just so provocative in a way that makes you want to see it. I'm assuming we should put in our bid for best foreign picture at the Oscars this year now, do you think? Or
Yeah, I think so. Well, you know, I also heard Pedro Almodovar is has a big film out. So,
Wow.
But just fascinating. I mean, look at that shot. Every shot tells a story, and I love that. And again, it was what I was saying before with Goliath. Nothing is extemporaneous. Everything that is there there's a reason that it's there. You know, another odd thing, just off the top of my head, and this will not ruin the movie, but there's a storyline within the film about Native American culture, and it's so beautifully done and handled. And I was thinking it was one of these things that in American movies, which is going to be our next topic, talking about Joker, everyone is so afraid to offend anyone that we shy away from even having a storyline with a Native American subtext. And there is one within the film that I just think is really brilliantly done, and where you actually see a Indian headdress and hatchets and tomahawks, and it's just fascinating, a fascinating film. Now, our other subject, which really caught my eye on Twitter, the director of Todd Phillips talking about Joker, and that he moved away from comedies to drama because he said that everything is so PC that you can't do comedies anymore. Do you find that to be true?
You know, it's funny. I wanted to thoughtfully consider what he said because I feel like people react to these sound bites so quickly. But I was thinking back on a number of studio comedies that I've seen in the last 4 years that were great. I don't know if you got a chance to catch Booksmart. That was a really wonderful film. Also, Game Night. I don't know if you saw that movie.
I didn't see Game Night, no.
That movie was so much better than it needed to be. A really, really smart, big slapstick comedy.
I like Long Shot. I'm the one who saw Long Shot and loved that film, and there was nothing sort of politically incorrect about that film. I thought it was fantastic.
I think the component of Todd Phillips' quote that I do want to address that I think might have some validity is the fact that critics are so quick to disparage a project before they really thoughtfully consider it.
Yes.
And I think sometimes that mouthpiece becomes the only story that's told about a movie.
Yeah.
And it's not considered in a way that it should be. But I also feel like to say that the studio comedy is dead is just a lie, because there's been a lot of really wonderful studio comedies in the last 3 years.
I think that what has to happen, I mean, everything goes, listen, my grandfather was said that, who did screwball comedies, and he said after the war, once you're involved in the war and Hitler and World War II, it was like, well, the world just didn't seem very funny anymore. And so that became the end of those kind of madcap screwball comedies, and you get into the 50s and film noir, and that's how and then comedies sort of come back in the 60s, like Doris Day and Rock Hudson's completely different type of comedy. And I personally, for me, these kind of, I don't know, toxic male American Pie type movies. Is it more that they ran their course than it's that we're not accepting of them being politically incorrect? I mean, didn't they run out of things to do in The Hangover?
Totally. I mean, I do like the first Hangover. I don't think it's aged as well as we'd hope, but to run that movie and franchise that movie as long as they did it once. I didn't know if they needed to keep doing it. And again, I just think if your comedy's not resonating with people, maybe you look at the scripts, you look at what you're writing about, and maybe it ran its course, like you said,
Well, obviously the climate between men and women right now is so fertile.
Right.
And it's got to move beyond, the male-dominated comedies versus female, bridesheads comedies, which those were very politically incorrect. And then you get into, what I thought was interesting about what he was saying is he was discounting movies like Bad Moms, which have explored the same genre, and they're doing really well.
Totally.
Like, they're thriving.
Yeah.
So maybe the idea was we were just a little tired of the guys getting together and killing a stripper and...
There's been enough of those, I think. I mean, I'm a straight white male, and I'm also bored of seeing broy straight white males on TV, and in movies. So,
but you have a nuance. Just my last thought, just because I'm thinking of it, I go back to the early genre of the 40-year-old virgin, which was politically incorrect, but man, funny and deep and had pathos and
It's a heartfelt movie. It's a heartfelt studio comedy,
and then. I think that some of these directors, because they got the keys to the kingdom, just went off on a rail and was like, all right, let's just see how crazy frat house shocking we can be. And so to me, it's an idea of like, well, don't give up on comedies, because I love comedies.
Right.
I hope that with the success of the film like The Joker, you'll go back and with maturity, explore just a different type of comedy, as many filmmakers do.
Absolutely. Just evolve. Most filmmakers do,
Yeah.
Keep looking around. Yeah.
Well, that's our soapbox on movies for today. Now let's get to the amazing Noah Wyle. Of course, he's one of the most beloved TV actors, from ER, of course, to Falling Skies and CBS's show Redline. He's guest starred on shows like Friends. He was in The Romanoffs, our pal Matthew Weiner's show, The Librarians, which he's also an executive producer. And he's worked with Michael Crichton, Dick Wolf, Rob Reiner, Mimi Letter, Oliver Stone, and Illeana Douglas. Ladies and gentlemen, Noah Wyle. Hi, Noah. Hi, Noah. It's so good to see you.
It's great to see you.
Now, we saw each other across a crowded room. It's so Hollywood. We hadn't seen, but you were nice to me.
It was an odd room for both of us to be in, because it was the documentary that Cameron Crowe recently made about David Crosby,
which I loved. But it was so. But that was the perk. That's the perk of going out here. You get to see people, and you saw me. You didn't avert your eyes.
I've been waiting to bump into you for years. I think it had been 15 years.
I can't believe it. It's not true.
Well, I had a 1-year-old when we made that little movie, and he's now turning 17. So
I know. I can't believe that. And I said you're like the picture of Dorian Gray. You must have you've got a painting somewhere in your closet of an old decrepit man.
There are things in my closet. They're not paintings.
Okay, we're gonna
much darker.
Much darker.
Now, you grew up in Hollywood, which is already shocking.
Yep.
California native.
Yeah, Angelino.
And I already did some research, so I know some of the early movies that you liked. But do you remember the first movie that you saw and who took you to see it?
Oh, my goodness. The first one that springs to mind is a double feature of Capricorn 1 and a Benji movie that my father took me to get me out of the house because my sister had a brownie meeting.
Did they still have brownies?
I don't know.
Oh, I was a brownie.
I believe they do. One of our producers is like a Girl Scouts like obsessee. So at least within the last decade and a half, brownies were a thing.
Little inside secret. Whenever I need to conjure up like a painful memory, I recall the time that I lost. I did something to my sister that upset her, and the punishment was I had to sell her Girl Scout cookies door to door for her. At the age where you don't want to ring on strangers' doorknob and say, "Hi, would you like to buy some Girl Scout cookies?" And I just remember these guys going, "What are you selling Girl Scout cookies? Hey, look at this kid! He's selling Girl Scout. Little boy selling Girl Scout cookies."
I can see that scene in a movie. We're talking about comedies at the top. Okay, now you also, I read, you were a big admirer of the Marx Brothers, Buster Keaton, Chaplin, and then you said, I stole a lot from Peter O'Toole.
I did. Well, the first play that I really had the courage to audition for in high school was, oddly, Joe Orton's Loot, which is not your traditional high school fare.
Yeah, really? Jesus.
It's sort of a kinky British comedy. But we toned it down, and some of the double entendres went over most of the kids' heads. But I, not knowing what to do, just sort of did a bad Peter O'Toole impression.
I love it. Did you ever meet him?
No, never. But I think Lawrence of Arabia is a perfect movie. It's a perfect performance, and I'll put him in Lord Jim and My Favorite Year. I mean, there's just so many. They're just perfect. My Favorite Year, I can literally quote every line in that, like Bible scripture. And I do it almost daily.
He was amazing. I don't know why I didn't. That's one of those weird. I want to do a top 10 show of performances that should have won an Oscar and didn't.
I don't know what won that year. He was nominated, I believe.
Yeah.
But
they really thought it was like number 7 or something, too. And he didn't win.
It's tough to win for a comedic performance, which ostensibly that was. But it was such a tragic comic performance,
Yeah. And he kind of became I met him later on in his life at some film festivals, and he was very gracious always, but had become somewhat of a caricature of himself.
Yeah.
As
we all will.
Apparently Gregory Peck won for To Kill a Mockingbird.
Tough.
No, that was the first. But what you're gonna have for
that would
My
have been for
Favorite
Lawrence.
Year.
For My Favorite Year was like 81.
Oh, for My Favorite
For
Year.
My Favorite Year. I'll check.
Come back on that one.
Come back on that, right?
Now, before, and then the other thing, that your first movie was Lust in the Dust. How did that happen with director Paul Bartel?
Paul was a really good family friend.
You're kidding.
Well, you
have an interesting family.
So I'm an Angelino. And what that means is that it can mean all sorts of things. My grandmother founded the Craft and Folk Art Museum that's on Wilshire Boulevard across from the La Brea Tar Pits. So I'm like 4th generation Angelino. So my family has gotten into all sorts of different areas over the years. And when I was really young, my parents split up, and my mom remarried a guy who was a film producer. And one of the movies that he produced early on in his producing career was this movie Lust in the Dust that was directed by Paul Bartel and starred Divine and Tab Hunter and Lainie Kazan and all these crazy people. So they were all in my house, when I was coming home from school. And then the follow-up movie to that was Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hills, which with Jackie Bissett that Paul directed. I was craft service on that movie, and it was just, they were like family movies, those really kind of raunchy, dirty Divine comedies. Not the John Waters ones, the Paul Bartel ones, which were different. Paul was. He directed Eating Raoul, and he and his partnership with Mary Warnoff was very different, and the movies that they were into were different than the ones that John Waters was doing in Baltimore, even though they both used Divine. Paul was much more of a cinephile, and his movies were much more sort of I don't know how to make the distinction, but they were different.
Scenes of the Class Struggle is incredible.
It's a great movie.
Isn't Ed Begley in that film?
Ed Begley, Wally Shawn, Ray Sharkey, Robert Beltran, Mary Warnoff. My
That's
mother plays a little cameo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
All the furniture that was in the living room we stole and was in our living room for most of my childhood.
And I noticed that you did one of those, which is, I'm so afraid of that. You did one of the ancestor shows. Like, you weren't scared that you were going to be a slave owner.
I went with the supposition that we were going to be. Knowing them, my mother's from Kentucky, and I have a lot of family from the South. It's my father's family that's from LA. So I was always curious about whether or not we had Civil War veterans in our family because
Yes.
no one ever fessed up one way or the other for fighting the North or the South. So that was what I went out to find. And I found out that we had actually both. We had people serving the Confederacy and the Union Army. And it took me down this fascinating road. I was game. I was just like,
well,
I
it is
didn't care.
amazing the kind of research that they can do.
They went they didn't do the story that they investigated, but they investigated my father's family 10 generations back to Amsterdam, to a family named Gant. I mean, it's just, and they give you a binder that's incredibly comprehensive, which made a great Christmas gift for my family that year. I dug it.
Now, do you have to sign something beforehand? It's like that says, "Hey, whatever we find, you can't take it back."
I
guess
was
everybody is.
figuring that it was going to be horrific, and I was sort of game for it. But the truth is,
Murder.
and I think I even said this on their program, like, if you're looking for a murderer in your family, you'll find one. If you're looking for a racist, you'll find one. If you're looking for a genius, you'll find one. If you're looking for, somebody who, you want to model your life after or don't, you can cherry pick because family trees are so vast. So it's really just a question of which story you want to focus on. And what kind of narrative you want to build around it. And those shows, that's what they do. They look for the one that's got what we look for in dramatic structure, that's got a nice act structure and a nice couple reverses to it. So mine in particular was, do you want to meet your great-great-great-grandfather? Sure. And then you find out that he was this pillar of his community, and he was a Civil War veteran, and he, always balanced the treasury to the penny. And then they give you this article, and he blew his brains out in a hotel room. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Takes you on a good ride.
Yeah, that was I love those shows. I I would never want to do it, but I love watching other people going through them. So I'm looking at some of your first movies. I first saw you on screen in Swing Kids. This is already before ER, but you also did the movie Crooked Hearts.
Yeah.
Now that's part of that early 90s. Remember all those kind of...
Of course. I auditioned for them all and only got Crooked Hearts.
But it's got that reality bites type.
Oh, I tested for Reality Bites. It was me. For Steve Zahn's part, with Parker Posey going up for Ginny Garofalo's part. Yeah, we were all in the same pool.
I went for the...
We were all in the same pool.
I know.
Crooked Hearts was interesting because it was a flawed movie, but much like the one we shared together, which we can get into.
Flawed movies.
I put it in my beautiful loser file. But it was a family drama, and the family was Vincent D'Onofrio, Peter Berg, Juliette Lewis, and Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Peter Coyote was our dad. Yeah, crazy. All
With
of them.
that many good people in a movie, what is it? Is it the directors? We're always looking for someone to blame.
There was a commonality in the one that we did, which is that it was a writer-director, a guy who was probably a better writer than director, and as such, he wasn't a great communicator. So he knew what he wanted, but he really didn't know how to talk about it to the people that were in place to help him execute that vision.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of frustration about trying to second guess him, and a lot of inarticulation on his part. So at the end of the day, I would say that probably that's where the blame goes. Is it was a really good and eager cast who just didn't have a really strong captain at the helm. But the captain knew what he was doing. He just didn't know how to tell everybody what the plan was.
Right. Yeah, but it was interesting, those kind of movies, because you're getting your feet wet and you're meeting other young actors.
I was such
stories.
a baby. I got I turned 19 in Canada on that movie, which is the legal drinking age up there. And those guys, Pete Berg and Vincent D'Onofrio, were playing my brothers. So we were, of course, acting like brothers and doing all sorts of, things. And I remember coming home from that movie feeling extremely close to those guys and thinking that I'd made friends for life. And I called Vincent up and he goes, hello. And I said, hey, Vince. No. And he goes, what do you want? And in 1 millisecond, I understood, movie friends are different than friends. Like, we are going to get incredibly close for a finite period of time, feel like family, but we are going to go home and we are not going to know each other the way that we know each other during that thing. And we may work together again and we may pick up the thread, But you can't call me on the Monday after the Sunday and expect it to be the same guy that was there on Sunday.
That's interesting. But yeah, when you see them, because we hadn't seen each other in so long, there is that you've built in this intimacy.
It's there. It's encoded, which makes it really wonderful. But I think that's singular to show folk, which is in order to build the trust that we need to work together, we have to get to know each other really quickly, which means we overshare all of our stuff.
I love that
to show
part.
that we have no ego and that we can be humble. But then we go back to the real world where we have to put all that armor back on.
Yeah.
We don't
We
walk
had
around
Betty
like-
Gilpin in to talk about that. She's in Glow. She was talking about how with her fellow actresses and actors, sometimes she feels like she knows everything about the attic of who they are, but nothing about like the foyer, It's such an interesting way that actors have to engage with each other.
Yeah.
She's
really
great. I love
interesting.
that show.
She's so good in that show.
She's phenomenal in that show.
And where did you shoot Swing Kids? Because again, I remember I was just sort of starting out, and literally every one of my sort of guy friends auditioned for that. That was a big movie.
I put a lot of similarities
Disney.
between Swing Kids and Alive, which you
Yeah.
did do, which I tested for the Nando Parado part that Ethan got. Oh my God, I wanted that movie so bad.
I know.
I was willing to eat a human being to get that movie. If Frank Marshall had said, Noah, it's down to you and Ethan, but one of you's got to eat human flesh, and Ethan's just balking. Would you do it? I'd say, Frank, where is it?
That was a hard. I remember auditioning for the film, and he kept saying how, we're gonna. I mean, at that point, they actually wanted to even film it in the Andes. He's like, "Are you ready for that?" I was like, "Yes, of course."
Yeah, right.
Oh well, but it would have been fun to.
Swing
make
Kids
it
was
then.
shot in Prague, Czechoslovakia, and it had a wonderful young cast: Robert Sean Leonard and Christian Bale and Frank Whaley and
An incredibly
Kenneth
interesting,
Branagh and Barbara
Yeah.
Hershey and all these other people too.
a really interesting idea. It doesn't quite work, but the mixture of the swing music. I mean, it's a fascinating idea.
There was a group of kids that were kind of antagonistic to the Hitler Youth that really were interested in English and American culture, predominantly swing music, and they dressed like hip cats, and they carried umbrellas around, and the idea was that you could make a movie about this revolutionary undercurrent of youth that was trying to survive as Nazi Germany kind of was going into formation. And so Jonathan Mark Feldman wrote a really interesting script. Again, Thomas Carter directed that movie. Thomas Carter was an actor who was on The White Shadow, who became a really hot TV director.
Yeah.
He directed the pilot for Miami Vice. He was a really hotshot director on Hill Street Blues. He created a show called Equal Justice, but he hadn't made a movie. He wanted to make a movie really badly, and there were probably other movies that he was better suited to make than the story of this revolutionary vanguard of youth.
Right.
But he got the movie, and I don't know whether that was the disconnect or whether or not, the subject matter was just too light to given that it was Nazi Germany we were dealing with, or if it was too close in proximity to Newsies, which there was a lot of confusion between like, oh, you're the singing, dancing Nazis. No. Christian was the singing newsboy, but he's the boxing Nazi.
Well, I advise people to check it out because it doesn't quite work, but it's fascinating. Someone should almost remake it as a miniseries. I think that is because it's so
you could
big.
easily put some legs onto it. Absolutely, you could stretch that story out.
Because it's an interesting concept, and the idea of mixing the music I thought was interesting. Okay, before we get to ER, A Few Good Men, what were your...
A Few Good Men was just the touchstone of all touchstones. I actually, ironically, I had auditioned for the larger roles in A Few Good Men to play one of the defendants, I think, and I didn't get the part. They gave it to another actor named Charlie Walsh. And similarly, I had auditioned for one of the leads in Swing Kids and didn't get the part, and they'd given that to another actor. But this actor showed up to play the part in Swing Kids that I played, and he showed up with a broken leg, and they couldn't use him for the boxing stuff, so they called me to come play the part that I played. And A Few Good Men was the same thing. This guy, Charlie Walsh, booked this nice little part in A Few Good Men, but then got a lead in another movie, and he bowed out. And so they gave it to me as a consolation, and then that other movie didn't happen for Charlie Walsh.
Wow.
Unfortunately. So those two movies were almost like... young actors, there's merit in being the sixth man on the bench. Like, you may not get the job in the audition, but give it your all, because you may be the guy they call if that guy shows up and can't do the job.
Definitely.
And once I got the job, I was so happy. Rob Reiner was so gracious, and that script was so good, and you know, I was the low man on the totem pole, but I'm driving a Jeep with Tom Cruise and Demi Moore and Kevin Pollak and testifying with Kevin Bacon looking at me, you know.
What a cast.
Unbelievable.
What do you remember about Rob Reiner as a director? We were talking about strengths of certain directors.
He just... There's two things that the first day on the set, we were shooting in North End of Malibu. We did all the driving stuff first, and I got there early, and I didn't want to bother anybody. And I saw him talking to Aaron Sorkin, and I was like, I'm just gonna hide. And I hear this voice say, "Noah!" And I look, and Rob Reiner comes at me like a lumbering bear, and he picks me up and goes, "Hey, man, I'm so happy you're here. We're going to have so much fun today. This guy's fantastic, Aaron. This guy's great. Listen, it's a little overcast. We're not going to get to your stuff for a little bit, but go get some breakfast. Go check out your room. I'm so happy you're here. This guy's fantastic, Aaron. He's going to do a great job today. Go get some breakfast. I'll see you later." And he walked away, and it took like 6 seconds of his day to make me feel welcome and comfortable and competent and confident.
Yeah.
And I would have killed for him if at that moment if he'd asked me to. And it's a lesson I've brought onto every set, that everybody shows up nervous, and if you make them feel welcome, you'll get their best work, which is ultimately what you want.
I agree.
So that's the first thing he taught me. The second thing is courtroom scene, last line. It's the button to this my whole character. You know, how did you know what a code red was? And my character says, "I guess I just followed the crowd at chow time, sir." And the way I read it was that this guy knows what he's being asked, and he's giving the answer that he knows he's supposed to give. That's what a soldier does. And I went through the whole thing, and Rob Reiner came over, and at the end he goes, "I don't know that you know what you're saying when you answer that question, but you really want to answer the question." And it was just, you know, sometimes somebody gives you just a slight variation on a reading, and we did it, and the next take is the one that's in the movie, and he was very happy. And that's what I liked about his direction, was it wasn't too much. It was all about rhythm. It was all about timing. If you were in the zone with it, he didn't bother you. But if he knew that you could, if you were facile enough to make a slight adjustment, you know, he was there with it. I watched him direct each actor differently. That's how he connected to me.
Oh, interesting. Like, how did he direct Jack Nicholson?
Well, I wasn't there for any of those scenes. The only time I saw Jack Nicholson on set, I don't know if I could share this story. He walked past me, and all I heard him say was, "Anybody mind if I have a left-handed cigarette?" And he lit up a joint and started smoking it.
Well, now we're in California.
Yeah, you can tell
it's totally...
I just love that he called it a left-handed cigarette.
I love that. I'm going to start using that.
Anybody mind if I have a left-handed cigarette?
Mr. Cool.
He was cool. And I will say this also. Every time you start a movie, there's always a table read-through where everybody meets each other for the first time, and it's all like first day of school bullshit, you know, politics stuff. But you want to give a good impression. But usually you play for a double up the middle. You don't go in there swinging for a fence because you don't want to look like an asshole, but you also don't want to mumble your lines and look like the guy that won't try, right?
Right.
So everybody shows up. The performance Jack Nicholson gave in the movie is the performance he gave at the read-through. And it was like everybody was playing doubles for a double, and then suddenly he opened his mouth, and we all was like, "Oh, we're fucking doing this?" or we're doing this.
Wow.
And it was just like the game got raised immediately. And that was the sort of aura that everybody, that was just a pro ball game. You know, when you're on a set with professionals, we'll get to the Californians in a moment.
Yes.
Because this is a perfect setup for that. Because I had been to an environment where professionals who knew exactly what they were doing it at the highest level at their game.
Right.
And were having fun. And they weren't freaking out. And, you know, everybody was pleasant with each other. And it was professional and fun.
Yeah. That's when, I think it's also the height of movie making, where there's enough money to rehearse properly, you know, get your costumes.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean?
We did rehearse.
Do camera setups. And then as we get into the independent films, it's good and bad. Sometimes you've got 16 days to shoot something. And sometimes, like you said, there is no, on the film that we did, you know, you just get cast in it. It just becomes like, you know, you get this person and that person, and you show up on set, and you're trying to make your way on set and meet the director for the first time, you know?
Yeah.
So they don't have a track record. I mean, certainly with somebody like Rob Reiner has quite a track record,
That
too.
period of time, his track record was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just
crazy.
coming off of having done Misery and all those great movies in a row. Spinal Tap. And I mean, he had a track record that was flawless for a minute.
Did you, when you were watching? I've only met Tom Cruise. Like I've met him socially. Actually, that's not true. I did a reading with him once, and he was, really fun to act with, of course. But watching him and acting with him, did you
We had a
pick up
rehearsal
on anything?
on the Sony lot in the soundstage to do that courtroom scene, and I showed up early, as is my way. And Kevin Bacon was there, and Demi Moore was there, and Rob Reiner was there, and Aaron Sorkin was there. And then Tom Cruise came in, and he was wearing a baseball cap, a white V-neck T-shirt, blue jeans, and cowboy boots. But in my mind, he was wearing a tuxedo because he walked into the room, and I just thought, oh, that's what a movie star looks like. They radiate a glow about them.
Right.
They have something different that comes from inside of them that has nothing to do with what they're wearing on the outside.
Yeah.
And he sat down, and he was extremely personable, unbelievable eye contact. If you say anything remotely funny, he laughs and laughs, makes you feel hilarious. And there was a moment where we got to a scene where Aaron wanted to change a line, and he said, Tom, I want to change this line to, and you coerced the doctor. And Tom said, and you coerced the doctor. And he reached into his bag and he pulls out a dictionary, a well-used dictionary, and he looked up the definition of coercion. He read it to himself 2 or 3 times. And then he wrote the line in his script. And I remember thinking, that's so smart. Like, I know he knows what coercion means. I know what it means. But he wasn't going to write it into the script until he knew exactly what it meant. And I was really impressed by that level of detail and specificity that he was bringing just to that moment of the process.
Right.
And I watched, and when I was around him, I saw that replicated every which way. He was going to give a great performance. One way, he'd drop to the floor and do 100 push-ups if he felt it got his heart rate to the level it needed to be for the moment of the scene we were in. Like, he was impressive.
Well, on that note, let's move.
I do want to quickly ask, did you work much with Aaron during that time?
No, not really. I mean, the only things that I can say about that process was that script was perfect, and then the changes kept coming in and making it better.
Wow.
And the play was tremendous, right? So to do the adaptation to a screenplay and get that green lit and assemble that whole cast, and then as the process is going, continually refine it, make it tighter and tighter. I'm profoundly impressed by him.
He's the best. Yeah, he really is.
So then moving into your next big thing is obviously then ER. Was there any thought about moving into television, or did you, when you read the pilot, you just said, "Oh, I got to"?
I got out of high school and I wanted to be an actor. I'd done this program at Northwestern University called the Cherub Program for young high school aspirants, and I met a kid from San Francisco, and we decided, hey, let's be best friends and not go to college and become actors and live on Hollywood Boulevard. So we did. And that's how that all started. And then he and I now are business partners years later. But I started off with this hugely arrogant notion that I didn't want to do TV, that I signed with an agent right out of high school who said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to do movies, I want to do plays. I don't want to sign a long-term contract. I'm not that kind of guy. I don't want to punch a clock. So the irony that my career really has been all about television is pretty thick, because I wasn't working much as an actor. I'd done A Few Good Men. I did Swing Kids in 91, and then I didn't work at all in 92. And I was just about to go back to work for Dmitry Dimitrov, who's now, he's a famous maitre d' in town who ran the Tower Bar, but he used to be the maitre d' at the Bel Air Hotel, and he was my boss. And he told me I could go back and work for him when I needed to. So I was about to call him. And then I got this idea that I should hire a manager to maybe look for more material. And I signed this manager. And she sent me the ER pilot script that day. And I thought it was a movie script because it was a 2-hour pilot written by Michael Crichton. And so I read it and I thought, oh, this is great. And I love this young doctor character. And then they said, well, it's a TV show. And I remember thinking they just canceled a show called Brooklyn Bridge, which was really good. They were canceling a lot of good shows at the time, and I thought, this is never going to make it on the air. We'll go, I'll shoot the pilot, I'll make some money, and then I'll get on with my film career.
And the rest?
Unfortunately, it was really good, so then you were stuck.
Well, it turned out way better than I thought it was going to. It turned out better than anybody really thought it was going to.
So did you have so the original cast is insane. I mean, George Clooney, Anthony Edwards, Juliette Margolis, Sherry Stringfield. Did you, Eric LaSalle? What was the table read like? What was that group like? Getting together, you just know that you had something.
I was always the young guy in those environments at the time, so I was really eager and really ambitious, and wanting everybody to get along, and wanting to be everybody's best friend.
That's a good trait.
I was exactly what I think that show needed to sort of have me be.
Yeah.
To sort of be everybody's mascot that everybody could,
Right.
feel not threatened by, but also want to protect and look out for and make sure that I didn't drink too much at the party. They took care of me. It was a wonderfully. You can't replicate that kind of chemistry. It was the right group of people that had a great sense of humor, incredibly hard work ethic. We wanted to be very good at what we were doing, and we were willing to work extremely hard to do it. Anthony was the only one that had a family at the time. The rest of us were single and didn't mind working 17, 18 hours.
Was Anthony sort of the most famous?
By far. He had already done A Few Good Men, and he'd already done Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah.
George had been brink of famous for a really long time. He had this distinction of having done something like 27 failed pilots.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of time. He'd done Facts of Life. He was on a show called Sisters. He had a sort of menopausal following for a character he played called Falconer on Sisters. Perhaps we have a clip. No.
Oh, look at you!
Oh, jeez, what a baby!
One of the things that I thought marked it was the realism that it had, because I don't think medical dramas lean much more soap opera.
Well, that was the trick. Was Michael wrote it in 1975 after he finished his third-year rotation at Harvard Medical. And he writes technical things. He writes technical books. He wrote technical books. So the level of jargon in this thing was almost incomprehensible. But John Wells, who took the reins of it to be the executive producer of the series, was smart enough to understand that jargon is really the musical soundtrack that plays as the backdrop to the human interest stories that play in the foreground. And if you can create characters that are overworked and underslept, who are really talented but beset by red tape and things that are beyond their control, it doesn't matter that the audience doesn't understand the intricacies of a thoracotomy. As long as they believe that those doctors do, that is all that needs to happen. So it sort of broke the mold of the old Marcus Welby one, which is, let me dumb this down so that you can understand it.
Right.
To I know you're not going to get it. Just stay out of my way and watch and hope for a good outcome. And that suddenly allowed viewers to be almost voyeurs instead.
Yes.
And created a verisimilitude that was really potent. That and the advent of the Steadicam.
I was just going to say that. That was it.
But the technology was there. It just didn't have the operator. And this Guy B, his name is Guy B, came in episode 7, I think, of our first season for an episode called Blizzard, which has in it an unbelievable Steadicam shot that almost takes up a whole act of the show. And that was the episode where we found our style, where we realized that if you don't cut and you go through the whole set and you just keep bringing in patient and patient and patient and lines and lines and lines, you create a sense of chaos and anxiety in the viewer that's really provocative.
Yeah.
And you put a sort of thumping soundtrack underneath that, and people won't catch their breath until the commercial break. And we just found it.
Now, tell me about, because I've done some, nothing as elaborate as that, but these Steadicam shots require a lot of rehearsal, right? So, one person messes up a line, and then
That was the joke. Is the last guy who pops in and says, "Phone call, Dr. Green," and he comes in and says, "Phone Green, Dr. Call." Everybody back to one. But just I remember Alan Alda guested on the show for a while, and he told us that one of the things that made MASH a success was that that cast used to do this thing they called gut check, where they would sit in a circle and basically critique each other's performance from the show the week before. And they were brutal. I mean, really, 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 really brutal. And honest about what was right and what was wrong. And so we did it. We did that. We would watch ER every Wednesday afternoon in John Wells' office before it aired on Thursday night, and we'd all have tuna fish sandwiches. And we made these rules for each other. Like, you're not allowed to take a private moment for your character because you've got to always be too busy to take that moment. So if you lean against a wall or massage your neck or do anything actory, we are going to kill you for it in this gut check. And so we became our own police force on each other in a way that protected us from the different directors that came in or the different changes that any show goes through.
Yeah.
And we did that for a really long time. But that sense of like, if you screw up, you're going to bring it all down, makes those wonders easier, and because you will not be the one that makes the mistake.
Right.
You know, you will learn your lines at home the night before. You will come in prepared. You will carve out your part of the scene so flawlessly that it will not be you in the fire lane. And we used to bet. We'd make a betting pool, $5 in the pool every man. And we'd bet on how many takes it would take to get the second print, and the one who got the thing would take the pot. And you know, it's so antithetical to the creativity, and yet because there was such a hypercharged competitive aspect to getting one of these shots and pulling off one of these things, it works.
And you had so many. Well, I remember too. I was doing Drew Carey at the time, and
Oh my
on the
God.
Warner Brothers. You guys were always out there playing basketball.
Well, George and I would play
We're like
basketball
one
every day.
unit.
Every
Yeah.
day. But Drew Carey, we
I think
had a
were right.
rivalry with them of like playing video games. There was a video game thing called Call of Duty that we all used to play on these computers that were in the admin area, and they were all real computers. So we'd play video games with each other, and Drew Carey played too. And we started playing against them, and then we all came in on a Saturday and had a competition, and then we started putting up propaganda posters all over the studio. With
It's
it's so
funny.
funny.
The things that happen on a movie lot.
Those were good days. We had friends, ER, and Drew Carey,
Warner
and
Brothers.
Lois and Clark. And
Yeah, it was a great
Gilmore
lot.
Girls. It was a really happening lot back then.
It really was. I used to admire you guys over there on ER. And also launched Mimi Letter's career.
Yes.
What did you think of her directing style?
She kills actors.
I mean, just in
I love her to pieces. But, you know, early on her style was only obtainable through one way, which is you shoot a lot of coverage.
Yeah.
You know, you have to shoot lots and lots of pieces in order to build editorially silent relationships and moments and endow objects and the things that she does. I think her strength is that she's got an incredible eye for the things that aren't in a room. So if you give her something that's kind of like a soft or sentimental piece of material, it's going to end up too much soft sentimental. But if you give her something that's got just literally factual, she fills it in so beautifully with everything else that it's the right balance. So when I think of her shows, they're always layered. You know, there's always something foreground, there's always something middle ground, there's always something deep background. Each one level is telling a story, and she knew what she wanted very clearly. She knew who was watching the dailies. She knew Spielberg was watching. She knew that she was framing for him, and we were all framing for him. But she was tough, really tough, in the way that you want a director to be tough. There was one episode called Love Labor's Lost that it was a big episode. She directed it early on. I had mononucleosis and 104 temperature while we shot it, so I was miserable. I was so sick that I was passing out one night and I wanted to go home, and they told me I couldn't go home. And I turned to the technical advisor, Joe Sachs, and I said, Joe, you got to give me something. I don't think I'm going to make it. And he literally said, no, I got nothing here. I could put one of these IVs in you that we have on the set. And I said, do it. And so he takes the IV and he sticks it in my arm, and I put the saline bag in my lab coat pocket while we're shooting, and I'm doing the scene with one hand, and they say cut, and then I hang the bag on a pole, and we did that all night long while we shot this episode. And it didn't occur to me like that was screwed up or it just, that was what we wanted to do. And the episode's tremendous.
Love. I don't want to see it
because
because we can see that on Hulu now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Love.
you can see the
Labor's
fever in my eyes.
Going into that. Okay, we got to get to so much more.
Sorry.
So let's get
Babbled.
no, it's all amazing. So let's talk about the Californians, the movie that we were on, and then I discovered we were in the movie Can't Stop Dancing.
Oh my God.
Isn't that funny? I didn't know you were in it. Everybody did little
Everybody did
cameos.
little bits in that.
How the heck did you end up in that movie?
Anthony Edwards' stand-in on ER, Tyrone Pinkham, ended up sort of an associate producer on that through somebody that he knew. And I think he got an associate producer credit because he was like, he got Laura Innes and me and a bunch of us to sort of do cameos. I showed up only because I was the biggest Mr. Show fan, and they teased me they said, how would you like to be in a movie where you get to be part of the best experimental dance trio in North America? You, Dave Cross, and Bob Odenkirk. And I was like, I'm in, man.
Yeah.
That was a highlight.
Yeah, it was fun.
But yeah, the California. Well, I'm on ER. I have a 3-month window in my summertime to do a movie. Everybody wants to do a movie on their hiatus, so you're really choosy about what you do. And I got this script that I was thoroughly charmed by, kind of an updated comedic remake of Henry James's The Bostonians called Californians, written by this guy Jonathan Parker, who had made this really interesting movie called Bartleby with David Paymer and Crispin Glover that was made for no money but had a lot of style and kind of panache about it. And I believe you were already set when the offer came to me.
Well, they sent me the script, and the same thing. I knew the Bostonians. I'd seen the film of the Bostonians with Christopher Reeve. Didn't quite work, but just an incredible idea. And I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. I just thought it had the possibility to be a great film to explore California society, and
we basically play a brother or sister. You're an environmentalist and I'm a land developer.
A humorless environmentalist. Plus, I'd never been offered a part that was, not funny. I like that she was humorless, and awkward and couldn't sing and was, I just welcomed the opportunity to play someone that was like a spinster. I thought that would be, really interesting. And you were the bon vivant land developer.
Looking back, the ideas that I had for that are so odd to me. I had a really strong take on what that movie was supposed to be, and and I showed up, and I just from day one, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and everything. It was sort of a combination of, okay, am I just used to being on a TV show and now I'm making a movie? Or am I used to being on bigger budgeted movies and this is a low budget movie? Or am I used to... I couldn't figure out what the disconnect was, and I kept trying to figure out if it was me. And ultimately, I think it was this gentleman that we were making the film for who was the writer, director, producer, and sole financier, which meant ultimately there was no accountability. And if you're working for... in a normal situation, there's a producer or a studio or a network that says, hey, I'm pulling the plug here, or hey, I think we're off the tracks here, and there really wasn't any oversight. So when we were having the disconnect, there wasn't any recourse.
What was strange for me, the conflict for me was that, when you're doing these indie films and everything is usually very collaborative, and my whole career had been very collaborative, and normally people hire me. I had recommended Jane Lynch for a part. She wasn't like Jane Lynch that we now know, and she was in the movie. And so Jonathan had been very collaborative, and then we got onto the set, and all these ideas I had were suddenly not, being listened to. So we had, which culminated, and it's only the couple times this has ever happened to me in a movie where I was the area of the conflict. Normally I stand back.
You say that, but I feel like you're taking way too much fun. I feel like I halted everything every day just to say, like, am I crazy here? Like,
but there was
I stopped production because I got mad that they were that I was playing a scene with a guy who had never read the script. He'd only been given the lines that he was supposed to say that day, so he thought he was in a drama, and I thought I was in a comedy, and I couldn't figure out why he kept playing it that way, and Jonathan wasn't telling him anything was different. And then I said, well, you've read the script. He goes, no, I didn't get the script. I go, well, that's crazy. Everybody that's in the movie should read the script. And I was told that that's not how it's done.
You're like, I don't think that's correct. Yeah. And then we were the two leads in the film, and Cloris Leachman was in the film, bless her heart, and I love Cloris. She's a quirky nut, but she is a bowl full of ham. She is ham and a half.
Except she's a vegan. So there's no ham anywhere near Cloris Leachman.
But, so she we go to rehearse a scene, and she'd want the entire scene to revolve around her, taking silverware out of a drawer or something. And then I was like, wait a minute, is it the scene? So things started to get lost. And then I remember we were doing a scene with Cloris where she didn't want to die. That was like my recollection. There was a scene in which she was supposed to die on camera. It was in the script. And as we're going to rehearse it, she just is not going to do it. And the director is not accepting of the fact and so suddenly he's rechanging all of the blocking, and then I sort of got frustrated because I was like, why are we doing this?
I remember that. We were shooting at that little beach house.
In this tiny little room.
Oh my goodness, tiny little room.
And I was just sort of trying to figure out where to stand. I was like, all right, well, my thing is like, okay, this is the lay of the land. This scene's going to be ruined. So let me just try to get my own take, So I was just trying to figure out what the shot was. And I said to the DP, Steve Fierberg, I said, well, just tell me what the shot is. And he goes, what do you care what the shot is? You're not even in the shot. And there was a moment of silence. And I turned on him and I said, actually, Steve, I am in the shot. I've been in the whole friggin' movie. I don't know if you noticed. I've been on the set every single day. And then that's where I saw the first AD which is, you never want this to happen, put his mouth to his walkie and start to whisper in it. And then you go, oh, no, it's going to be all over so at that point, it is spread. And so Steve and I went outside and had words with each other. We eventually, spoke again, but we were fighting, we had a really, really large fight, which the director didn't even participate in. He just let me and the cameraman, yell at each other off camera. Cut to what's in the movie is this bizarro, doesn't quite work scene of Cloris Leachman not really dying and,
I only saw the movie once, and I think there was a moment where I got really upset with what I was watching, and sort of much like when we made it, I probably just disconnected, and then I didn't really go back to it. I'd like to watch it again just to sort of really break it down technically. But that first opening shot is me in this big sort of grassy hill way out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm tiny in the frame, and I'm supposed to walk all the way up this hill to a camera, which is a big walk. And I thought we were making this sort of slightly farcical movie. So I do this very kind of exaggerated but prideful walk as I'm marching like James Dean, marking off territory in Giant. But it was a big chance, it was a big choice, and I figured I'm going to either hit it or miss it. And I finished the take, and the director came over and said, very purposeful. And then he didn't say anything else. He didn't say, like, I like it or I don't like it or that works or doesn't work. And that was sort of set the tone for the whole thing of like, okay, I'm just going to be doing stuff, and I guess I'm going to hope that it works and I hope that it's in the movie.
Well, I thought that, so the last thing I'll say about it, because I love the first half of the movie. I watched the first half of the movie. I was like, this movie is brilliant because I loved the script so much and I really wanted it to be so good, and I love working with Noah. In fact, like, those were my favorite scenes. We had some fight scenes that were excellent. There was this is another interesting thing that happens with movies. There was a whole reel in which my character goes insane. I nearly drown. I fall in love with Kate Mara, and we're both fighting over Kate Mara. And in actuality, then I almost did to do the scene in the water. And then they cut that entire reel of the film. And so...
Is that what it is?
Yes. Yes, Noah. So then it's the end of the movie. So sometimes when people are home, I'm like, this movie requires a subtitle from the actress Illeana Douglas. It's like, audience, there's an entire reel that is now missing. Therefore, the end, then you see me at the end of the movie and I'm singing, it's like, all right, now it's become a musical. This movie doesn't make any sense.
That movie thoroughly depressed me, to be honest. It's to the point that I have not been able to go back up to Mill Valley.
Oh, it's on Amazon Prime. After you watch...
As a performer, when you know you're in a project that's not working, do you have to go all in, right?
Yes.
You
I
go
do.
all in, but I bought a huge book called Cryptonomicon by Neil Stevenson, which is like 700 pages. And I just buried my nose in it. And I sat on this chair when I wasn't working.
I took your picture of
And
that chair.
I have a wonderful photograph that Illeana took. We were shooting at the beach, and I was sitting in my chair reading this book, and the tide came in around the legs of my chair, and I was so immersed that I didn't even notice. I'm just like, please, God, I'm not here. Take me away, book.
That moment was kind of a perfect microcosm of the whole experience you went
Yes,
through, right?
she blew it up, and then she wrote in this big silver Sharpie an affirmation that says, every day I'm able to forgive and to let go and forgive.
I love it.
And I have it in my office, so it's the first thing I see every day when I
I
sit
would like one too. Place it on my desk.
That was I was really into taking photographs. FYI, Valerie Perrine is in the movie,
Oh,
who
yeah.
I talked to extensively, as is Keith Carradine.
Keith and I bonded on that movie in a
and
big
played
way.
guitar and-
And I can't tell it on the air, but remind me to tell you the story that Valerie told me in the crew van
Oh, that sounds like a
about
teaser.
making Lenny with Dustin Hoffman and Bob Fosse. Wow,
That's where we need to be
one
on
of
the page.
Great Hollywood stories. I've
Okay,
ever
you're
heard.
gonna tell me that one after it. So, and then you did The Myth of Fingerprints, which is another movie that's very hard to see, but is a very interesting film about a dysfunctional family, which stars Roy Scheider, for God's sakes.
Another great
Blythe
cast: Roy Scheider, Blythe Danner, Hope Davis, Julianne Moore, James LeGros. Some terrific. Arya Baracus. Really, really wonderful actors. That was another hiatus movie. You know, I was picking and choosing. I think it was probably the one I did 2 years before Librarians, because it's the one I met my ex-wife on. She was the makeup artist on the movie. There was something, I met Bart Freundlich, who was a young filmmaker, and he had this script that was almost Chekhovian. It was so beautiful, this Thanksgiving sort of reunion of this family that's really screwed up coming together. And we found the money together, and we were going to go off and make this movie, a couple of young guys, yeah. And I showed up, I finished ER on a Friday, and then I was in a play with Peter Berg at the Coronet here in LA, and I finished that on a Sunday. Flew off on Monday to go make this movie, and they'd already been shooting for about a week. And I show up, and Bart says, "So I think I'm in love with Julianne Moore." And I go,
Wow.
"What are you doing, man? You can't fall in love with the lead actress on your first movie. That's like cardinal sin number one." And you've just screwed up our whole summer plan, because obviously this is going to be meaning, like, at the end of the day, you're going to want to be with her and not me. And I was really jealous. And so I went to work the next morning. I was pouting in the makeup chair, and I kept looking at the makeup artist. And so I started chatting her up. And anyway, long story short, Bart married Julianne, and I married the makeup artist. And we, Tracy and I have had 2 kids together, and we're together for 13 years. And Bart and Julianne are still together. And Bart and I never spoke again. No, not really, but sort of like that. But that movie was really beautiful.
Yeah, it's an interesting film.
Sometimes you make a movie and everybody goes away like on a summer camp experience, and they
Right.
live together, and they're telling a fun story, and it just works, and it's just familial and comfortable and fun. That was that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It really just, it's got its flaws in it, but I think it works as a movie. The performances are really strong. And it was fun to make. It was all pleasant.
Yeah, I like films like that. It basically, a lot of it takes place around the dinner table. And do you find that difficult, doing dinner table scenes? Because, again, a lot of coverage.
A lot of coverage. You learn early on, don't be the one stuffing your face. I'm the hungry guy. Like cut to angle 12, take 13. Where's my bucket? I loved those scenes, because when I come from a big family, so sitting at the dinner table for me was my opportunity to stand out from my brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. And so if my story, my joke, my little prank that I'm pulling under the table, whatever those things am I making my food into a design? I just remember sitting there thinking, this is so fun. Like, I'm in the sandbox with all my friends.
Yeah.
And as we're going around the table and shooting the coverage, I'm able to find more and more layers to play with the people at the table. Oh, he says that. Well, then brother and sister obviously share a look about that.
Right.
And so when you're working with really good tennis players,
Yeah.
scenes like that when we're all together, if everybody's not on their phone and thinking about how to save their own performance, but is in it to make it better, it's unbelievable how you turn something that's one-dimensional to two-dimensional to exponentially complex, in a minute.
That's where I love being third or fourth on the call sheet, because
The best.
the stars get to go first, and you could kind of calibrate what you're doing, which I never want to go first. I always I'm personally hoping that they'll always shoot the other person so I can kind of learn my words, because do you learn? I'm not a big learner of the words. I'm not word perfect. I sort of semi-learn them and then
I have
throw
a gift.
them away.
I have
them.
a facility. If it makes conversational sense, I have. It's almost photographic.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, especially with the medical.
But I think it was really honed on the art because, we were shooting 80-page scripts in 8 days, so we were memorizing 11 pages of medical jargon every night. And you just do that over and over again. You're looking for the thing that stands out as opposed to the thing that doesn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The flow is easy to see. You're looking at the tricky things of the things like numbers. You're like, those are the ones I have to concentrate on.
Right. Different things in the same,
But I used to be so, faithful to the word that I think I'm loosening up a little bit of that. Now, sometimes when you're photographic, it means that you kind of stop at learning your words.
Right.
And I had a great acting teacher who was a disciple of Stella Adler's, Larry Moss, who used to say, that Stella used to say, it's not the lines, it's the life underneath the lines.
Yes.
So a lot of times it's just getting the lines out of the way so I can concentrate on everything else that I'm not saying.
Yes.
That I'm feeling and not showing,
You were talking about Larry Moss. One of the things I read, you said you like to do long emotional speeches.
Yeah.
I hate that. I like working off of someone more than a long speech. You like long speeches.
I love speeches. It's so funny. This popped into my head. I remember I was a kid. I was a really good friend of mine was named Jed Weitzman, whose stepfather was Henry Winkler. So I grew up a lot in Henry's house and got to watch Happy Days in Henry's house. And Henry once was helping me with a monologue I was working on. And he gave me this tip that when you're working on a big speech, everybody thinks that you got to rush through a speech because you got all these lines to say. But when you're talking, you never think you're about to give a speech. So every time you finish a sentence, you think you're done. So be done. And then you just have one more thought. And so if you just look at a speech as if it's not a speech, but it's just somebody who can't quite finish the thought that they want to get out, it frees up this sort of like, oh my God, I got to memorize all these lines. I don't. I just have to memorize these little thoughts and they kind of link in a chain. But it gives you an opportunity to kind of have a beginning and a middle and end to a moment.
Right.
Without it being cut up by an editor or cut up by
What about, do you ever feel self-conscious, like that the actor isn't really listening to you? I'm talking about my own fears now, but that's what I always think. I go, is he listening?
This is going to sound so horrible to admit.
Why?
I just finished this mini-series, and I think I did some of the best work of my life. And it was a shame because nobody really saw it, but that happens a lot. But there was these speeches that I had to give. In fact, there was a speech that I had to give at this dinner, this banquet, and it was a very emotional speech. I had to break down in the middle of it. And it's the kind of thing where you get to work that day and everybody goes, hey, dude, you ready?
Oh, no.
Boy, I'm glad I don't have something like that. I'd be freaking the fuck out if I had that speech. And everybody shows their nerves by the way they try to help you calibrate yours, right?
Yes.
And so you know that going in. You also know you're not going to sleep the night before. You know all this because you've been doing it for so long. I've gotten to the point now where I remember hearing Kobe Bryant interviewed that he liked to get the ball at the end of the game when he was down by 2 and there was no time on the clock. That's when he wanted the ball because then he got to win the game and be a hero.
Right.
And I remember thinking, Jesus, who would want that much pressure on them? I woke up the morning to shoot that speech and I thought, people are going to see some shit today. They're going to be, they're going to go home and say, wow, I saw some shit today. And I just went to work thinking that I was about to give a gift to everybody and show them something that they haven't seen me. Or I know it sounds horrible to say.
No, it sounds great.
But it was the first time I ever went to work and thought, oh, this is what a professional musician feels like. It's no longer, can I play the score? It's, how do you want me to play it? Fast, slow? Are we taking breaks? Like, what do you want to accentuate here? It's not a question of, can I play the notes?
Yeah.
The notes that's the easy part. Like, we're now taking it to another level. And I felt very freed by that for some reason.
It's a great feeling, although, see, sometimes I feel you can be undermined by that because I'll play that game too. I'm in my car and I'm like, today is going to be...
It's easy to sabotage it.
Yeah, and then as soon as I get there and I'm like, where's my coffee? What am I thinking? You know, and then they
but
go...
I use all that too. I mean, that's all part of it. Where's my coffee? Where's my chair? Why are we not? Why are we waiting? You know, what is the thing?
We want to shoot it before lunch, you know.
Where I had so patient up on ER, and the camera was right here, and the microphone was right here, and everybody was talking because they'd already shot their coverage, and I was trying to do build my fourth wall and have my moment of privacy, and I was just about to do that thing where we go, hey everybody, you know, I was so cool with the camera was on you, and wow. And I remember thinking before I did that, God, I just want a moment of quiet so I can sew this guy's leg up and have not all these distractions. And then I thought, I bet that's what a doctor would feel like in a hospital, and if there was a lot of noise. And I remember thinking, why am I trying to shut everything out as if it isn't here, and then pretend there's a lot of other distractions that aren't here? Why don't I just use the distractions that are here and just play it?
Yeah.
And so suddenly the camera and the microphone and them talking, I wanted more. I invite those kinds of problems, and I want my coffee not to be there. I want them not to bring my chair. I want all of those things that make me suddenly react emotionally so that I can figure out which ones work and which ones don't work really quickly. Does that make sense?
Totally. I think all of those. All right, I want to talk about some of your TV. What was the miniseries?
It was called The Red Line.
Oh, The Red Line. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah, especially for network. I think you occupy this rare space where you're doing elevated network content, which I wish there was more of it, but it speaks to the choices you're making, you know?
Well, it speaks to a kind of hopeful romantic in me that thinks this stuff's going to make it, you know, across. And I did a pilot for CBS a couple of years ago that felt like it had something to say, and I thought, God, am I going to get into bed with another TV show? And I really liked the showrunner, and I liked that the character had something to say. High-ranking whistleblower, kind of a Snowden-type character, really interesting commentary. And then the election went the way that it went, and nobody wanted to make a show about a whistleblower, and CBS panicked.
Maybe now.
Then they come back and they said, do you want to do this other one? And I go, once burned, twice shy. You guys aren't going to put this on the air. But then Peter Roth at Warner Brothers says, well, this one I'm going to really back. And Les Moonves seems to need some political cover. There needs to be an attempt to join the conversation that CBS has not joined. And maybe this will be that thing. So then I thought, okay, I'll go and do it. And then amazingly, I thought they could have picked it up. It wasn't a miniseries. We pitched it as a series. It was going to be 22 episodes, and they chose to do it as 8, which was an acknowledgement that it was a good enough story to tell, that they were a network that doesn't usually do it, that it was a good tepid, experiment. And so we went off and did it with these notions that we had done something really significant, and then cynically, they aired it in 2-hour blocks over 4 Sundays against the last 4 episodes of Game of Thrones. So it was, let's do the right thing and then let nobody know that we did it so we don't piss off the brand that is our bread and butter. And so it's the thing we all wanted to have happen, and yet those of us that were involved felt really kind of beaten up through the process because we thought we had a support that we didn't really have, and we thought we were making a change agent show that really could have been, that wasn't going to get a fair shot. But the work was solid, and we've had to all kind of rationalize this process by saying sometimes things have, impact over time. Big bangs cause a lot of noise, but they don't do a lot of structural damage, and slow leaks over time can bring down mountains. And maybe putting the first gay protagonist character on CBS or the first trans character on CBS, or doing a show about Black Lives Matter that, allows law enforcement to be looked at with a slightly critical eye as well as a heroic eye. over time, that sets a precedent of having just been on TV that will make a difference. But we thought that one was going to make a bigger difference.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. Amazon and Hulu and this ability, nobody's really looking over your shoulder. So you have this ability to do 8 episodes. And I hate to say it, I really feel like that's where the future is. You don't have, the networks are just not.
That's probably my future is I don't know that I want to do that again, where you put your heart on your sleeve that much. And then it's just ultimately up to a marketing decision, to to an algorithm about whether or not it's going to play.
And at least if something, like I saw you in the Romanoffs, and it's like some people may like it or not like it, but it's there. It's always there, and you can always watch it.
Show.
I thought that was a departure for you. You were like the sad guy, and you were sad, Noah.
You think so?
Yeah, you thought you were like the romantic. Well, you were like the sad Lord Byron.
Well, let me ask you this: do you find that the roles that you get are slightly reflective of where you are in your life?
No. For me, I wish they were. I always get cast as like loudmouth, lunatic, people, and I'm from New England. I never get cast in parts that are. Sometimes early on in my career,
you don't find that the exploration or whatever the job is has some sort of intrinsic lesson in it that is appropriate for where you are in your life.
So I wish. Sometimes early, in some cases, yes. Lately, not as much. I wish more so that it led into my real thing. Things that I'm doing. No, I get a little more stereotype.
I go through dry spells, that are inexplicable, and then I get cast in roles that all have a kind of thematic resonance to where I am. Often enough that I find that that's what my career is more than anything else. Is I plug into a project that is right where I'm at, and it resonates.
It did feel that way in the Romanoffs, because I hadn't seen you on screen in a couple years.
I was going through a really kind of interesting period, and then trying to figure out what I want to do, and. That was an interesting character who was sort of floundering and rootless and sad at heart. But there were a couple. I mean, Redline is the saddest character I've ever played. I wept the entire time through that. I was exercising something very, very sad. But I really enjoyed going off and just telling one story without any connective tissue around it.
Yeah.
There was no before, middle, or... You don't even know this guy's story. All you know is the scenes that he's in. And there was something really liberating about that.
Yeah, I thought it was really... Was that a set? You were on a cruise ship.
No.
That was a real cruise?
It was a real cruise ship.
Queen Mary?
We got on this Royal Caribbean cruise ship heading out towards the...
my God.
And
that's a
I
good
flew to
job.
Miami. We got on the cruise ship and we shot for 4 days going out. And then when we hit one of those islands, we flew home. There was one scene, the interior of the banquet scene, which was the night that Matt and I had our thing, was shot in the soundstage in Toronto. But everything else was on that ship.
Oh, my goodness. All right. And then the Librarians, briefly, because we're our Librarian fans here.
I had a kid. I had 2 kids, and I wanted to start doing stuff that my kids could watch. And I got sent this wonderful script when I was on ER by this cerebral superhero called The Librarian, Flynn Carson. And I was just swept up because it reminded me of all the Don Knotts movies I enjoyed as a kid. The Incredible Mr. Lippet and The Shakiest Gun in the West and The Apple Dumpling Gang. And you'd mentioned Chaplin and Keeplin and all those guys that I sort of, Marx Brothers. I loved physical comedy growing up, and this was my attempt to sort of be a Don Knottsian character. Don Knotts playing Indiana Jones. And so I jumped at the chance, and we created this wonderful franchise of 3 movies, and then we made a TV show that ran 4 seasons off the idea. And it just was like a pipeline straight to my sense of play. And I loved everybody I worked with. Everybody behind the camera were just great, great fun people to work with. And we would go off and, on a shoestring budget with sort of our tongue planted firmly in our cheek, to go and just do stuff that made us laugh.
We were talking at the beginning of the show about, comedies, the politically incorrect comedies on their way out. And see, to me, family comedies, Unmind, such a great Unmind.
We were on TNT, and TNT basically canceled us because we weren't edgy, and TNT wanted to be HBO or FX and start
Right.
doing Breaking Bad. And I kept saying to them,
bad.
the edgiest thing on TV right now is the Librarians, because it's the only thing that does anything like this.
Yeah.
You know, you find me a show you can watch with your grandmother and your grandson. Like, you won't find it. This is edgy because it's such a throwback to a other period of time, of programming.
Yeah.
But they didn't see it that way. But
Plus, I like the guy that the lead hero is smart,
yeah, his biggest muscle was his brain, and, and it had a sort of Scooby-Doo scariness to it,
Yeah.
and you learn a little something, you get a little history, you get a little silliness, you get a good pratfall,
Yeah, anything about history I love anyway.
And I got to really go to film school on TNT's dime. I started directing on Falling Skies, which was another series I did up in Canada. Sci-fi Spielberg series. But I really got to sort of have fun writing and directing and producing hands-on on the Librarians. Well,
So now that are you about to go into something else? Or you're in your thinking mode? Are we going to do a sequel to the Californians?
yeah, let's do it.
I'm in.
Let's go and remake that movie the right way. It'd be good.
Let's do the Bostonians.
That'd be fun.
That could do.
I'll do anything that you want to do.
I'll do anything
I had
you-
such fond memories of being with you.
Oh, we
and
had so much fun.
even when I saw you at that David Crosby screening, I was just all the anecdotes that you made me laugh over came rushing back to me.
We had a lot of
You
fun.
tell the greatest joke as Richard Burton. Do you remember the joke?
Yes, I can't tell on the air.
can't?
I
Oh.
know. I mean the Richard Burton shopping,
Richard Burton doing but
going grocery shopping.
Yes.
Come on, you do it.
I can't do the Burton voice though.
Gotten to the Richard Burton. Elizabeth and I went to the supermarket. I bought a bottle of whiskey, a bottle of vodka, some wine, some beer, and Elizabeth brought a loaf of bread. I said, Elizabeth, what are we going to do with all that bread? That's Richard Burton doing stand up. That was my,
So good.
yeah. That was one of the if you hire me, you get this all the time.
Oh,
you get
she's
this,
a hyphen. You would believe you get stories, you get it, everything.
you get stories. All right, Noah. This sadly has to come to an end, but it's been so much fun, and not an end because I'm going to see you again,
I hope so.
and hopefully we'll work together again. And what else, Jeff?
Well, Noah, thank you so much for being here. We do, as our AfterBuzz TV network, which is our sister network, did a full coverage of the Red Line. We did have a really devoted audience who loved that show, so I'll send you some of those links because they're out there. Yeah, same with the Librarians, and we just want to thank you for coming on today.
Oh, that makes me
We can't wait to see what you do next.
Right on.
Of course, guys, this is the Film Scene with Illeana Douglas. I'm your co-host, Jeff Graham. Thank you so much for joining today. We're here every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific, and you can join us live to hear some of Hollywood's best and brightest. We have the co-writer of Before Sunrise next week, which will be great to talk about working with Linklater, a lot of that stuff. So that'll actually be again next Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific. Please subscribe to the podcast. You can find that anywhere podcasts are found. And of course, Illeana's debut on Goliath tomorrow.
Oh my goodness.
Amazon, Billy Bob.
drops. It drops, and as we always say on the show, everyone's life is like a movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this is the end of our show for today. Thank you so much, Noah Wyle. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of its owners or principals.